Broke single dad shelters a mysterious girl. He had no idea she was a millionaire's daughter. Before we continue, please remember to like, share and subscribe. The night was bitterly cold, the kind that pierced through even the thickest jackets. Jake pulled his worn coat tighter around him as he trudged down the dimly lit street, his boots crunching over patches of ice. Another long shift at the school where he worked as a janitor had left him exhausted, but his thoughts were only on getting home to his son, Max. Their little trailer wasn't much, leaky roof, creaky floor, but it was warm, and it was theirs. As he neared the corner store, something caught his eye, a small figure huddled near the alley, barely visible beneath a flickering street lamp. At first, he thought it might be a stray dog. But as he stepped closer, he saw it was a girl. Young, maybe 10 or 11, curled up with her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her clothes looked expensive once, but now they were stained and frayed. A designer backpack sat beside her, dusty and half open. Jake paused. Everything about the girl screamed trouble or danger. But then she looked up. Her eyes, wide with fear, met his, and in that moment, he saw something he recognized too well: helplessness. "You okay?" he asked gently, crouching to her level. She didn't respond. She looked like she wanted to run but didn't have the energy. "I'm not gonna hurt you. I've got a son your age. We've got food and heat. You can stay the night if you want. Just for tonight." Still silent, she nodded slowly. He took off his coat and draped it over her shivering shoulders. Together, they walked the last few blocks to his trailer. Max was already curled up on the couch, half asleep in front of their tiny TV. When Jake walked in with the girl, Max sat up, confused but curious. "This is Lila," Jake said after a pause. "She's staying the night." The girl looked startled, but then nodded, accepting the name. Jake grabbed a spare blanket and laid it out on the couch. He heated up a can of soup and offered it to Lila. She ate slowly, as if unsure when she'd next get a meal. Max offered her his only stuffed toy without saying a word, and Jake felt something tighten in his chest: pride, sorrow, and something else. Later that night, after Max had gone to bed, Jake peeked in on Lila. She was fast asleep on the couch, still clutching the stuffed bear, his coat wrapped tightly around her small frame. He didn't know who she was, or what she was running from. But he knew she needed help, and for now, that was enough. Jake didn't have much. But he had a warm place, a kind heart, and a little boy who understood more than he let on. And that night, under the roof of a broken-down trailer, something rare and fragile began to take root: trust. Jake moved quietly around the living room, arranging old blankets and a thin pillow on the couch to make a bed for the mysterious girl now sleeping under his roof. Max, his 7-year-old son, peeked out from their shared bedroom, curious about their guest but sensing the seriousness in his father's expression. Lila sat in silence, holding the mug of hot soup Jake had prepared. Her fingers trembled around the chipped ceramic, but she didn't spill a drop. She thanked him softly before eating in small, precise bites, grateful but cautious. Jake watched her for a moment, noting the way she sat upright, her posture unusually proper for a child her age. "You'll be safe here tonight," he said gently, pulling the old curtain shut to keep the cold out. The next morning, Lila was already awake when Jake got up. She was quietly folding the blankets on the couch, her movements neat and efficient. She greeted him with a small nod and even helped set the table for breakfast. Max was instantly fascinated by her. By the end of the morning, the two were drawing together on the floor, giggling over a mismatched set of crayons. Jake took the chance to ask, "Lila, where did you come from?" Her smile faded. She looked down at the worn linoleum floor and whispered, "I had to leave." That was all she offered. Jake didn't press. He had seen that kind of fear before, in kids whose parents struggled with addiction or worse. Something about Lila's answer felt heavier, more complicated. But Jake believed in giving people space. If she wanted to tell him more, she would. Over the next few days, Lila adjusted quickly. She helped with small chores, sweeping the floor, washing dishes, and even fixing the toaster that Jake had long given up on. Her every action was measured and deliberate. She handled breakable items with the grace of someone used to luxury, and she spoke with a clarity that suggested private tutoring or top-tier education. Jake noticed all of it. One evening, after she'd made a perfect omelette for Max, without help, he sat back in his chair and studied her. She laughed when Max told her a joke, but it didn't reach her eyes. There was always a guardedness about her, like she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Jake couldn't help but wonder, who was this girl? She was polite, calm, respectful, too much so for someone her age. She didn't watch cartoons, preferred classical music when helping Max study, and instinctively said thank you after every small kindness. She flinched at loud noises and kept her backpack within reach at all times. Jake had taken in a stranger, yes. But she was no ordinary runaway. And though he didn't yet know the truth, he felt it looming just ahead, quiet and undeniable. Whoever Lila truly was, she wasn't just passing through. She was changing their lives, piece by piece. Jake stood in the parking lot outside the local police station, staring at the entrance with unease. Something in his gut told him it was the right thing to do, report the little girl who had shown up out of nowhere. He hadn't seen her face on any posters, but a child alone on the streets didn't just happen. Still, as he reached for the door, Lila's voice echoed in his memory, "Please. Don't tell anyone I'm here." He sighed and turned back, stepping away from the glass doors. That night, back at the trailer, Lila barely touched her food. She sat near Max, watching cartoons but not laughing. When Jake gently asked again where she was from, her hands trembled. "I can't go back," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "They'll find me." Jake didn't need details. He recognized the haunted look in her eyes. Fear like that didn't come from disobedience. It came from something much deeper. He nodded silently, deciding to wait for her to speak when she was ready. Lila's dreams, however, betrayed the secrets she couldn't say aloud. Night after night, Jake would find her tossing and crying out in her sleep. "No, don't take me," she whimpered once, curled up under the quilt Max had given her. Jake would gently wake her, assuring her she was safe. And in her nightmares, the truth started to slip through. Between the cries and the broken phrases, a different world emerged: marble floors, flashing cameras, gated estates, and a woman's voice yelling her name in panic. In flickering fragments, it became clear, Lila once belonged to a life of wealth and privilege. And somehow, she had run from it all. Jake didn't press her. Instead, he focused on what he could give her now: peace. On weekends, he took Max and Lila outside the trailer park to the edge of a nearby field. There, under the clear night sky, he taught them how to spot constellations. Lila would lie quietly in the grass, eyes wide with wonder as Jake told stories about Orion and the Big Dipper. For those moments, her face softened. In the mornings, they cooked breakfast together. Lila learned to flip pancakes with surprising precision, laughing with Max over syrupy messes and flour-covered counters. She began to smile more, even if only briefly, and her laughter, though cautious, felt real. Jake had never expected to be anything more than a struggling single dad. But here he was, helping two children laugh again. He didn't know Lila's full past, but he knew the girl in front of him was brave, broken, and beautiful in ways the world had likely never seen. Whatever shadows chased her, Jake silently promised he'd keep them at bay. Because whether she admitted it or not, she was no longer a stranger, she was family. The knock came just after breakfast. Jake had just finished clearing the dishes when a black sedan pulled up to the curb. Max was playing with his toy trucks near the heater, and Lila was quietly sketching at the table. Her pencil froze mid-stroke the moment she heard the knock, her shoulders stiffened, eyes wide. Jake opened the door to find a stern-looking woman in a gray coat flashing a badge. Child Protective Services. "We received an anonymous report about a minor staying here. May I come in?" Jake forced a smile. "Sure. Come on in." The visit was brief but tense. The officer glanced around the cramped trailer, noting the two small beds, the half-stocked fridge, and the clearly improvised setup. She eyed Lila curiously. "Who is she to you, sir?" "She's my niece," Jake replied smoothly. "Her mom's overseas, and she asked me to take care of her for a bit." The officer jotted down notes, clearly unconvinced. "All right, Mr. Jennings. I'm going to leave a warning on file. But if we receive another report, we'll have to take further steps." Jake nodded, heart pounding. As the officer left, Lila sat frozen, tears silently sliding down her face. That night, after Max went to bed, Lila stood by the window, staring out into the darkness. "Jake," she said softly. "I should tell you something." Jake looked up from the couch. "What is it?" "I wasn't just running away from home." She turned to face him, her voice trembling. "I was taken. Kidnapped. They wanted money. Lots of it. But I escaped." Jake stared at her in stunned silence. She pulled her designer backpack closer. "They said my mom was rich. That she'd pay anything to get me back. But I didn't want to be a pawn. I couldn't trust anyone." Jake sat beside her, stunned but steady. "Why didn't you say anything before?" "I was afraid. I didn't know if I could trust you." Her voice cracked. "But you've been kind. And Max, he makes me feel like I belong." Jake took her small hand in his calloused one. "I don't know who you were before, Lila. But I know who you are now. And you're safe here. I swear it." Later that night, while flipping through channels, Jake stopped cold on a breaking news segment. Authorities continue the search for Lila Sinclair, the 11-year-old daughter of tech mogul Veronica Sinclair. Lila disappeared 3 weeks ago, believed to be kidnapped. A $1 million reward is being offered for any information. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The photo on screen, pristine, smiling, dressed in velvet, was unmistakable. Lila Sinclair was sitting on his couch. He looked over to the girl who had changed his life in a matter of days. Her secret was out, even if the world didn't know where she was yet. But Jake did. And now, the weight of that knowledge pressed heavily on his shoulders. The morning sunlight crept through the blinds of Jake's small trailer, casting soft shadows across the cluttered living room. Jake sat at the table, silent, staring at the frozen news image on his phone, the face of the girl he'd sheltered for nearly 2 weeks. There was no doubt now. Lila wasn't just any runaway. She was Lila Sinclair, daughter of billionaire tech entrepreneur Veronica Sinclair. He turned to where she sat quietly, helping Max with a puzzle on the floor. Her laughter was gentle, sincere, but there was a tiredness behind her eyes that no child should wear. Jake knew what he had to do, but his chest tightened with the weight of it. "Lila," he said, voice soft but serious. "Can we talk?" She looked up immediately, sensing the change in his tone. He held out his phone, showing her the photo from the news. Her face paled. I was going to tell you," she whispered. "I just didn't know how." Jake pulled out a chair for her. "Tell me now." Tears welled in her eyes as she sank into the seat across from him. "They took me from my school. Said my mom would pay anything to get me back. But I escaped. I ran for days. Everyone I asked for help either ignored me or was just waiting to call someone who'd sell me out. Then I met you." Jake's expression softened, though the truth stung. "Why didn't you say something sooner?" "Because you didn't ask for anything," she said through tears. "You gave me soup. A bed. You let me just be a kid again. You didn't treat me like a prize or a problem." Jake reached across the table and gently held her hand. "You're not either. You're just a girl who needed someone to care. And I care, Lila. But your mom, she's looking for you. The world thinks you're still missing." "I don't want to leave," she whispered. This felt like home." Jake nodded, his throat tight. you're always welcome here. But we need to make this right. With a heavy heart, he picked up the phone and made the call. The operator transferred him to law enforcement, and within minutes, a plan was set. They would come to retrieve her, safely and quietly. By afternoon, a convoy of sleek black cars rolled into the dusty trailer park, turning heads and drawing curious stares. Jake stood outside with Lila by his side, holding her hand tightly. From the lead car, a tall, elegant woman stepped out. Veronica Sinclair, once polished and poised, was now tear-streaked and trembling. The moment she saw her daughter, her composure shattered. "Lila," she cried, running toward her. Lila let go of Jake's hand and ran into her mother's arms. They held each other in a wordless embrace, sobbing, clinging, as if trying to erase the days lost between them. Jake stood silently, watching the reunion. His heart ached, but it was a good ache. Lila was safe, and that was all that mattered. The air felt heavier than usual inside the trailer that had become a haven for three hearts. Outside, luxury cars idled quietly, waiting to take Lila back to a world of polished floors and bodyguards. But inside, time moved slowly. Lila stood near the door, her small suitcase in one hand, her other hand tightly gripping Max's. Tears streamed down her face. "Do I have to go now?" Jake knelt beside her, gently wiping a tear from her cheek. "Your mom's here now, Lila. She's been looking for you for so long. You'll be safe with her." "I'm safe with you," she whispered, breaking into sobs as she threw her arms around his neck. Jake held her tightly, his own throat aching. Max joined the hug, sniffling. "Don't forget us, okay?" Lila pulled back just enough to nod. "Never." Veronica stood nearby, eyes filled with gratitude and awe. She stepped forward slowly, her heels silent on the worn trailer floor. "Jake," she said softly, "you saved my daughter's life. No amount of money could ever repay what you've done." Jake stood, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. "I just did what anyone decent would have done. She needed help." Veronica stepped closer, her voice firm now. "But most people didn't. You gave her warmth, dignity, and safety when she had no one. Please, let me do something for you. Anything. A home. A job. Financial support." Jake shook his head. "I don't want anything in return. I didn't help her for a reward." Veronica hesitated, then smiled gently. "Then let me do it for Max." Jake looked over at his son, who was clutching Lila's toy bear in one hand. Veronica continued, "I'd like to set up a trust fund for him. Something for his future. And we'll upgrade your home, quietly, no attention. Just so you both have a little more comfort." Jake opened his mouth to protest but stopped. Pride battled with practicality, and for once, practicality won. "All right," he said quietly. "But only for Max." Veronica smiled and extended her hand. "Deal." In the days that followed, the story went viral: unknown janitor saves missing heiress. Journalists camped near the trailer park, hoping for interviews. Cameras followed Jake to the corner store, the school, even the gas station. But he refused all attention. He wasn't interested in fame. Lila called often, sometimes just to hear Max's laugh through the phone. And one day, a formal invitation arrived in the mail, an elegant envelope bearing the Sinclair family crest. Inside was a handwritten note from Veronica inviting Jake and Max to a private gala in his honor. Jake chuckled, shaking his head. A janitor at a gala. What's next? Max grinned. Do we get to wear suits? Jake smiled, ruffling his son's hair. Looks like we do, buddy. As the sun set that evening, Jake sat on the porch, watching Max chase fireflies. For the first time in a long while, the future felt bright, and filled with unexpected blessings. It had been nearly 6 months since that unforgettable day, the day Jake opened his door to a lost, frightened girl and unknowingly changed all their lives forever. Now, the days looked much different. Jake stood in the doorway of his new home, a modest but comfortable two-bedroom house nestled in a quiet suburb. The trailer was long gone, replaced by sturdy walls, a real kitchen, and a backyard where Max now played with friends from school. Jake had taken a position in logistics at Sinclair Enterprises, a role personally offered by Veronica Sinclair herself. He never imagined he'd find purpose and stability all in one place. The house buzzed with life on the weekends, especially when Lila came to visit. True to her word, she returned every other Saturday, her visits now routine and cherished. She no longer arrived timidly, but with joy in her step and a suitcase full of art supplies, games, and stories. Jake had come to see her as a daughter, and Max saw her as the sister he never had. Their bond, forged in a moment of need, had deepened into something permanent. On a sunny afternoon in late spring, the trio visited the park near their new home. Max ran ahead, barefoot in the grass, laughing as he chased bubbles floating in the wind. Jake and Lila sat on a bench, sharing ice cream and stories. She had grown stronger. Her shoulders no longer hunched in fear, her eyes bright with a newfound sense of safety. "I never thought I'd be able to laugh like this again," Lila said softly, watching Max spin in dizzy circles. "Not after everything." Jake nodded. "Funny how things change when you let people in." She smiled up at him. "You didn't just let me in. You gave me back my life." As Max came tumbling toward them, collapsing in a fit of laughter, Jake reached out to pull them both close. They stayed that way for a moment, just three people sitting beneath the afternoon sun, no titles, no status, just family. A gentle breeze rustled the trees overhead as the scene slowly faded. Jake's voice came in as a voiceover. "When I found Lila, I thought I was helping someone else. I didn't know I was saving myself too. I was just a broke father doing the right thing. But that single choice, that one moment of compassion, it gave me everything I didn't know I needed. A better life for my son. A chance to be more than what I was. And a daughter I never expected." The camera panned out, showing the three figures laughing under the open sky. Jake's voice lingered one last time. "Sometimes, giving shelter to a stranger reveals the richest treasures of the heart." The screen faded to black, leaving behind only the soft echo of joy, and the enduring power of kindness. If you enjoyed the story, please remember to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.